This week, we're going to take a closer look at Haru's cycle of socialization to get a better sense of the impact Disney has had on our cultural landscape. Let's start with a more developed sense of socialization. Have you ever wondered how you learn to interact with one another? How you learn which styles are in fashion, which teams are popular, and which trends are, well, trendy? People who study culture and human communication argue that there are formal rules that we are taught to follow, such as laws and regulations. But there are just as many, if not more, informal rules we follow as well. We learn these informal rules from a very young age through our day to day interactions with others, through social interaction. We call this informal process of learning how our world works socialization. Many researchers and theorists write about the study of socialization, but Bobby Haro has a really nice, concise essay that explores this process and the effects socialization has on our identity. She calls the process the cycle of socialization. Haro argues we're born into a world with a system already in place. In the United States, for instance, we're born into a world where the political system is already in place. Laws are already in place, and the structure of our major cities and highways are already in place. Go ahead and stop the video, get your journal, and brainstorm the cultural and social structures that are important to your life that were already in place before you were born. We don't get to pick when and where we're born. We have no control over which parents conceive us, which sex we are born into, which race, nor even the wealth and status of our parents. We also can't control how our parents were socialized. Like us, they're a product of their social environment. Haro notes then that we can't blame others for their biases and prejudices. Hold on to that thought. We'll come back to it later. So, we're born into a world with a social system already in place, and to parents who've already been socialized. They are our first connection to the outside world, and through them, we received our first lessons about our world. Haro calls this the first socialization. She argues that people we know and trust teach us about our place in the world, including our first concepts of gender, racial and national identity. And for many of us, the lessons we are taught about our world and our identity seem normal, natural, and right. For some, however, the messages are uncomfortable, feel wrong, and they cause cognitive dissonance. For instance, I was raised in a very traditional family, the granddaughter of European immigrants, and I learned early on that girls were quiet during family conversations, that children did not talk back to adults, and that girls cleaned the house and did the dishes. For me, these traditional roles didn't sit well. I wanted to engage in the conversation between my grandfather, father, and uncles. As I got older, I definitely wanted to challenge some of their ideas about race and gender, and I definitely wanted my stinky boy cousins to help with the dishes after a big family dinner. Sometimes, listening to the sound of their laughter in my grandmother's backyard while I dried the dishes after Sunday dinner made me want to smash my grandmother's best china on the floor. Boy, would I have been in trouble if I'd done that. But family is not the only source of socialization. Haro also argues we receive messages on a continual basis from the institutions and broader culture in which we live. We start preschool or kindergarten at a young age, consume media such as cartoons, movies, and music, and participate in clubs and activities such as Boy Scouts, soccer, and ballet. On a daily basis, we receive messages about who we should be, how we should act, what we should wear, and how we're measuring up. In fact, we are under a constant barrage of messages, which Haro calls enforcements, that tell us our place in the world. Some enforcements are very negative, racial or gendered slurs, for instance, while others seem very positive, such as compliments about our appearance or a skill we just learned. The important thing to remember, though, is that both positive and negative enforcements serve the same purpose. They reinforce the status quo and keep the social system in place. They literally say either stop rocking the boat or good, you're not rocking the boat. Some of us can happily live our lives without ever rocking the boat. The hand we are dealt at birth seems totally fine, and we wonder why others are so set on complaining. From our perspective, the world looks pretty fine. Haro calls these positions agents. By an accident of birth, agents are given certain social privileges and power. On the other hand, some of us chafe at the hand we're dealt. The identity offered to us seems binding and unfair or impossible. We may feel powerless, angry, or uncomfortable. Haro calls these positions targets. By an accident of birth, targets are the focus of negative stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination, and they may have less power and less opportunity in the social system. So, where does Disney and the media fit into all of this? Well, as Zipes notes, Disney is a big company with tentacles in many places. Moreover, where media is concerned, Disney is an old, established company with a long history. Let's start there. Zipes notes that Disney first started in film with a little character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which was produced for Universal. Disney broke from Universal, however, leaving Oswald behind, and then developed his most well known character, Mickey Mouse. By this time, however, World War II was having a major impact on Hollywood and media. Many companies were going out of business. Disney, however, made a shrewd move and signed a contract with the US government to create a series of training films and short newsreels for the war effort. I know it's hard to imagine, but think about media in the 1940s. Most American homes did not have televisions, there were only a few broadcast networks, and Americans were being asked to ration and pay taxes to support the war effort. Because they did not have televisions, many Americans went to the cinema to watch movies. Before each movie, the theater would show a newsreel updating the audience about the war effort or a propaganda cartoon. Yes, propaganda. In fact, during the war, Disney produced hundreds of training videos for the Navy and Air Force and many propaganda videos for the government. Disney was a well known name before the war, but these films cemented Disney's national identity. He and his studio were officially the media company of the United States of America and became not only a household name, but also a trusted and respected part of American life. After the war effort, or should I say, because of their war effort, Disney continued to produce educational films that were shown in schools across the country. In fact, when I was a child, walking 2 miles uphill in the snow to school, I grew up watching Disney shorts in my elementary classrooms.